I'm wearing the so-called application for my church. It's called the Constitution. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the First Amendment. Nowhere in there does it say you need to apply Whiz, Susie, to be an entheogenic church. We will use these sacraments reverently, safely, in ceremony to commune with God. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome aboard the Max Afterburner podcast, sponsored, powered, brought to you by the No Fallen Heroes universe and the universe, and also Sacred Warrior Fellowship. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the threads, man. I got my Declaration of Independence and Constitution polo shirt on. Why? Buckle up. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, for the slow people that are in our government, I'll do this again. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What part of shall make no law are you not understanding? Ladies and gentlemen, our founding fathers in the first two amendments said shall make no law, and then the Second Amendment said shall not be infringed. Now, let me give some folks in our government a little civics lesson, since you apparently slept through this. The Constitution is a list of things that limit you. It don't limit me or we, the people. Do you not understand this? We have lost our way in this country. It is exact opposite. All of these colonies and these nascent states, they wanted to be independent states, baby. Let me farm. Let me worship how I see fit. Leave me alone. Well, we probably should band together, and looks like the king ain't going anywhere. So let's kind of get together and fight a war for independence, for liberty, for freedom. Then what happened? All right, well, we're all a bunch of states. We got together. Think we probably need a federal government. They were not happy about that. They had just come from something like that. We don't want no king. We don't want any of that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come up with a document that we're all going to agree to that will limit said federal government. It'll keep us out of our lives. It'll do the bare minimum required, raise an army and a navy, and then negotiate some treaties. That's it. Leave us alone. Of course, that's not what happened. But ladies and gentlemen, I served this country for 15 years. I buried 16 buddies due to mishaps, 4 due to suicide. Religious freedom, many in this country fought, died for, suffered horrific injuries. It is absolute. We'll get to some potential slippery slopes, but I am here to brief you. Why is this a solo Whiz, you're welcome rant episode? Because, ladies and gentlemen, a couple days ago, a federal judge. So, let me just read the headline, and we'll go from there, because I'm infuriated by this, and I'm happy. I'll start with I'm happy, and then I'm infuriated. Federal judge sides with religious group that uses psilocybin as sacrament, rejecting Utah officials' request to dismiss the lawsuit. Singularism. I don't know if I'm going to be able to say that 10 times fast. Singularism is a small entheogenic religious group in the great state of Utah, Elvis chapter, right? Or Elvis, no, we're the Flying Elvises, Utah chapter. Was that a Nick Cage movie? Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, the jackbooted thugs, the government, Utah, raided this place, arrested the guy, seized his sacrament. How dare you? They sued. Man, this federal judge brought the effing heat. A historic constitutional battle for religious freedom has quietly unfolded in Utah, culminating in a major victory for Singularism, a small religious minority that incorporates psilocybin into its sacred practices. In a groundbreaking decision, again, happy and pissed off, I'll go with the happy. In a groundbreaking decision that may influence religious freedom and psychedelic healing policy in America, a federal judge has ruled that the religious use of psilocybin by Singularism is protected under Utah's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Hint, it's protected under the First Amendment. Also protected. Isn't this funny that we had to, at the federal level as well, have a Religious Freedom Restoration Act? Because it was under attack. Apparently, people forgot what shall not, right? Shall make no. The ruling follows months of an intense legal battle between Singularism, exactly, and local government authorities who stand accused of multiple constitutional and civil rights violations, including abuse of the criminal justice system. Wow. The attorney for the church said the unlawful misconduct of defendants was objectively unreasonable, flagrantly unlawful, and undertaken intentionally with willful indifference to plaintiffs' rights. Defendants' actions, the state, violated the plaintiff's clearly established constitutional rights, which reasonable police officers are or should be aware. Wow. Again, happy and furious. How dare these people? I love this headline. Federal court rebukes local government harassment and overreach. After hearing testimony and reviewing evidence, the U.S. District Court for the District of Utah issued a TRO, temporary restraining order, against Utah County, Provo City, Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray. However, just 5 days after the court issued a TRO, the local government prosecutors, under the supervision of the Utah Attorney General, Jeffrey Gray, filed criminal charges against Singularism's founder, Bridger Jensen, in what plaintiffs view to be an act of retaliation. These criminal charges were accompanied by a flurry of other aggressive and vexatious filings related to the case. Note to self, vexatious. Now you know why I didn't do well on my SATs. I got to look that one up. Prompted by, so the state, full force, jackbooted thugs coming after you, man. Benjamin, get my musket. Prompted by these filings, the court held another hearing on January 23rd, 2025 to determine the motion for preliminary injunctions. In this hearing, legal argument was heard and additional briefings requested by the court. On February 20th, the court reaffirmed its stance and the protections by converting the TRO into a preliminary injunction in a 38-page decision. Justice Jill Parrish condemned the state's actions, stating, quote, "It is ironic, then, that not long after enacting its Religious Freedom Restoration Act to provide special protections for religious exercise, that the state of Utah should so vigorously deploy its resources, particularly the coercive power of its criminal justice system, to harass and shut down a new religion it finds offensive, practically without any evidence that the religion's practices have imposed any harms on its own practitioners or anyone else." So let me take a little tangent here. God bless you, Justice or Judge Parrish, because I posted this on my Instagram account today, and somebody rolled in there like, "Whoa, hang on there, Whiz. This is a slippery slope. They used to burn witches and human sacrifices and child brides, in religions in the past. Okay, dude. With the slippery slope shit, let's drop anchor here. Reasonable is the key word that the government has to use. If you establish a religion or your beliefs, if the government feels they need to go against our founding fathers, the Constitution, the law, and all sorts of stuff to intrude on your religion for whatever purposes, which most likely isn't constitutional, there should be reasonable accommodations, or they keep using the word reasonable. I'm fairly certain 99.9 infinite amount of Americans in this country would agree that it's not reasonable to do human sacrifices, burn witches, or have child brides, okay? So stop with the slippery slope stuff. It's key that this judge says they ain't hurting anybody. First of all, they ain't hurting anybody else, and they're not hurting themselves. Psilocybin is the least hurting thing on this planet. Alcohol, tobacco, 100% legal. It'll kill you. It'll kill others. My sister was killed by a drunk driver. Psilocybin doesn't hurt anybody. You can't overdose on you can't overdose on something that came out of the planet like psilocybin. I mean, if you took 80 trash bags full, I guess, but no. Court orders return of sacred mushrooms. The court not only halted the local government's efforts to suppress singularisms, religious practices, but also ordered the immediate return of the sacred psilocybin mushrooms that had been seized in a controversial police raid. Can you imagine? I haven't seen any jackbooted thugs kicking down the door of Scientology. Haven't seen them kicking down the doors of the Catholic Church, which they probably should have done when they knew all these children were getting molested. Separate conversation. For months, the local government refused and delayed to return the mushrooms, but this second order required them to do so. This marks a historic legal precedent, affirming that the government cannot unlawfully confiscate religious sacraments. In this order, honorable, and I will use this word, Honorable Judge Parrish opened with a strong statement reinforcing her protections for religious freedom. Quote, "Our nation was built on an essential commitment to religious freedom. For that guarantee of religious liberty to mean anything, the laws must protect unfamiliar religions equally with familiar ones, both in design and in practice. In this litigation, the religious exercise claims of a minority entheogenic religion put the state of Utah's commitment to religious freedom to the test." Unquote, because I'm going to say they failed, Utah. Wow. The victory comes at a time when Utah's newly enacted Religious Freedom Restoration Act, it passed last year, folks, 2024, is being tested for its real-world application alongside Utah's passage of a discretionary psilocybin program for psilocybin use in, you ready? Secular medical settings in the state's largest healthcare system, which also passed in 2024. So the ruling contributes precedent for how state and federal courts may handle religious entheogenic cases in the future. Additionally, the Honorable Judge Jill Parrish stated, "Whatever legal regime a society chooses, it must apply its protections equally to unpopular or unfamiliar religious groups as to popular or familiar ones if that commitment to religious liberty is to mean anything." Wow. So you're allowed to use psilocybin over here in Utah in that clinic, but you use it over here to commune with God. The cops are fucking coming to arrest you. Benjamin, get my musket. This is infuriating to me. Man. The decision is also a stunning rebuke to Utah County and Provo officials who have now lost two major legal motions against singularism. Isn't this awful? The state has unlimited funds, unlimited attorneys. This poor little church, I was chatting with the guy on LinkedIn, the guy that was arrested. They have a little GoFundMe and stuff. It's like, my God, they just want to bankrupt you. How dare these people? Despite their months-long resistance, local authorities were ultimately forced to return both the seized mushrooms and sacred scriptures taken from their spiritual center. Bridger was able to receive them from the police on March 4th. Could you imagine them doing to the Catholic Church? Archbishop, whoever in New York City, the NYPD busting down the sacristy and grabbing the Eucharist and the Bible. I mean, no, you can't. That's the problem. I am more religious, more spiritual than I have ever been as a Catholic in my life, was as a Catholic in my life. The court's ruling forecasts the likelihood that the local government's action will ultimately be found to be a civil rights violation. Are you listening? Did you hear that? So either these attorneys, the attorney general, the city attorney, whatever, they're idiots, or they're just mean, awful. I mean, again, I'm a political science major, but I can read the First Amendment. Singularism, okay. As the founder has said, this case is about more than singularism. It's about reaffirming fundamental religious freedoms and ensuring that constitutional protections apply equally to all faiths. The law is clear. The government cannot selectively enforce religious protections or disregard them when faced with a belief system it does not understand. How many times have I told you that when I sit in the studio, I feel like a failure? Why? Because I can't communicate exactly what I experienced. Words fail me. First of all, God didn't use words, didn't have a mouth. It was all, I don't know what it was. Energy, it was God. I had direct experience with our Creator. Clearly, sitting across the table from these the thugs, these jackbooted thugs, these government agents. What do I look like, Cheech and Chong? Even if I did, man, it doesn't matter. Let me throw my flight suit on there, Attorney General. He continues. The court's rulings so far affirm what we have maintained from the beginning. We are a sincere and lawfully protected religion, and its members have the right to practice their faith without government interference. We remain confident that the facts, the law, and the Constitution are on our side, and that this case will set an important precedent for the protection of religious liberty in America. Again, happy, but not. I mean, I started Sacred Warrior Fellowship last month? Didn't know any of this stuff. I never heard about this small entheogenic church or anything like that. But when this thing came out and I saw this on the news yesterday, I'm like, wow, no such thing. I was pressing forward. I don't care. I didn't need any of this. But thank you, God. Thank you for this. Thanks. It's so funny because yesterday after reading all this and being amped up, I'm like, I wonder if this happened for a reason. And then the other me's like, dude, what are you, an idiot? I thought you're the guy that says there's no such thing as coincidences. And here you are wondering if, was this meant for you too? What's next? While singularism would prefer to resolve the dispute with local government defendants, it appears the defendants remain intent, the defendants being the government, to resist the court's conclusions that singularism is substantially likely to prevail on the merits of its lawsuit, meaning they will have to endure continued litigation at the hands of the state. Wow. So that's their plug to go to them, singularism.com or .org. Unbelievable, folks. I can't. Let me just read their about real quick. Might sound familiar, especially if you listen to 129, whichever one, the founding of Sacred Warrior Fellowship. We are a contemporary religion dedicated to the responsible, ethical, and structured spiritual use of psilocybin as a sacrament. rooted in the core belief that all is one. Amen. We incorporate scientific understanding, yes, modern spirituality, amen, and ancient entheogenic traditions to create a safe, intentional, and transformative religious practice which establishes a connection with the divine. My God, I love it. Unlike informal and secular psychedelic movements, Singularism operates with rigorous ethical and religious guidelines, extensive preparation, love it, integration protocols, testify, ensuring that every spiritual journey is conducted with reverence, responsibility, and respect. I love this. The religion welcomes seekers from all backgrounds who share an authentic religious commitment to personal growth, healing, the alleviation of suffering, and pursuit of communication with the divine. I love this, man. God bless these individuals. How infuriating, however, folks, for this to be. I mean, it just doesn't even... They lost a couple times. You know, and it's ego, right? The Utah attorney jet. Last time I checked, in Utah, a bunch of Mormons talk about a state that should really, like, hey, man, you got a new religion that might not be one of the old ones? We support you. Utah. You got, or maybe that's what the problem. Ooh, I didn't think about that. Maybe the attorney general in Utah or the provo attorney or whoever sees this as a threat. Look at me. I just did that live. You're welcome. The judge, let me read some of the quotes from the judge, too. She's really good. Quote, the irreparable injury to plaintiffs is not merely theoretically, the judge said on Monday. Based on the record in this case, the court notes once again its findings that the prosecution was brought in bad faith as part of a larger effort to harass plaintiffs for their entheogenic religious practices and in hopes of giving the government a second opportunity to litigate the free exercise issues presented squarely in this case. Wow. If she runs for office, you got my vote, man. The prosecution has already caused Singularism to lose many of its practitioners and affiliates, and forcing plaintiffs to wait until the conclusion of the criminal proceedings to secure their free exercise rights would be the equivalent of issuing a death warrant for their nascent religion. For these reasons, the court grants plaintiffs' motion for an anti-suit injunction pending final judgment in this court's enjoining further proceeding against them. So so the federal judge did two things. Like, you're done with the criminal stuff against them, and their suit against you for violating their civil rights can proceed. That's a double whammy, man. Wow. Parrish also made the point because Utah already creates an exemption for psilocybin use in what? A secular medical setting. What? The government interest behind the act, at least according to the state, is preventing harm from and abuse of these substances that are dangerous or addictive. A religious exemption for plaintiffs risks undermining these interests. They claim the psilocybin used for a voyage may be tainted. A facilitator may fail to recognize a contraindicating drug, or a recreational user may pose as a religious practitioner to get psilocybin for illegal, non-religious purposes. But these are the same risks inherent in the secular exemption, especially since the medical exemption imposes no sourcing, testing, or chain of custody requirements for the psilocybin administered by the healthcare system. So Utah and these jackbooted thugs had no problem with the secular use of this, but when it came to the religious, they shot a bunch of signal flares up. Nothing over here, though. Wow. The judge also said that a law that categorically prohibits the possession and use of the psilocybin sacrament, I love you, Judge, sacrament, thereby preventing Singularism's adherents from pursuing their religious voyages and hindering them from producing their sacred scripture, not only burdens, but substantially burdens the free exercise of their religion. Slippery slope people, did you just hear that? This state didn't make any reasonable effort. It sounds like the guy when he's like, we tried. Like, can we sit down and let's figure out a mutual, let's find the middle ground. Nope. Benjamin, get my musket. Wow. Unbelievable. The government separately argued that the burden imposed on the religious group was related to the criminal prosecution it faced. But the judge said, quote, challenge entirely misses the mark and borders on the disingenuous. The judge is seeing right through the state's bullshit. Most fundamentally, defendants, the state, fixate on their criminal prosecution as the source of the burden on plaintiffs' religious exercise, when the root of the burden is the Utah Controlled Substances Act and its direct prohibitions on psilocybin use, she said. If the statute did not prohibit plaintiffs' psilocybin use, defendants would have no basis for prosecuting Mr. Jensen. And to state the obvious, a statute can substantially burden religious exercise. I mean, this is just, I can't even, this is like a layup. The judge is like clubbing baby seals. The order also sharply criticized the state position that, without having actually imposed criminal penalties against the church, the claim burden under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is moot. The judge didn't see it that way. I love this. Finally, the implication of the state's argument are breathtaking. Whoa. Suppose the state of Utah decided to give prohibition another try and passed a law banning the possession, use, or distribution of alcoholic beverages with a limited exemption for red wine administered by a healthcare system for medical reasons. Then suppose the Catholic priests in Provo, believing themselves to be protected under the Utah Religious Freedom Act, distributed wine during Mass and consequently faced criminal prosecution by Utah County. According to the state's theory, as long as no criminal penalties were actually imposed on the priests, their religious exercise would not be substantially burdened either by the law banning alcoholic beverages or by the criminal prosecution. The ludicrousness of the state's argument here needs no explanation. In any event, the court can, in any event, I just pounded you into the dirt, but in any event, the court concludes that plaintiffs have alleged a substantial burden on the free exercise and consequently established their prima facie case. I absolutely love this. So, folks, here's what's insane. The federal government highlighted last year, a watchdog group, a need for clearer timelines and standards in the religious exemption process around controlled substances. There was an 80-page report from the GAO that said the Drug Enforcement, DEA, should improve the process, which it considers granting religious exemptions for psilocybin and other controlled substances, asserting that the existing route lacks clarity on timing, evaluation, and other matters. Fuck you. That's what I have to say to all of that. Nowhere on my shirt or in the Constitution does it say the DEA is the arbiter of religions in this country. It is unconstitutional. Benjamin, get more muskets and get some men. Can you believe this? Some unelected fucking bureaucrat sitting at the DEA who and here's what's I trust me, I've done my research on this, man. I am tight on this stuff. There's a bunch of entheogenic churches out there that are like, we want to apply, but in the application, it says, are you currently using this? So before you're approved to be a church by the DEA, infuriating, I have to say that, but let's just pretend, it asks if you're currently using these substances. So let me get this straight. You have to admit to the DEA that you're breaking federal law in order for them to. So some of the attorneys I've consulted with are like, Yeah, man, there's craziness going on. In order to apply to be a religion to the DEA, which, again, God bless us, you have to admit to breaking federal law in order to. So that's, and then some of these churches, I've talked to Ian, I've talked to a bunch of folks that have done that route. Could not disagree more with it, but I support that. They're trying to, operate within the system. There ain't no system with the First Amendment, folks. That's it. It limits the government. Doesn't limit me. But it's taken years, and the DEA hasn't responded. Whatever. The GAO focused specifically on psilocybin use under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, finding that DEA's process was burdensome. So, folks, when the GAO, another government entity, says the DEA being involved in adjudicating if you can practice your religion as you see fit or not, the whole process of them even being involved is burdensome, let alone the fact that it's unconstitutional. But even if we're going to pretend it is, it's incredibly burdensome. So, folks, whenever you use the word burdensome with how I want to practice my religion, it's over with. You have no case. Go read the First Amendment, DEA. Unbelievable. While exemptions from the Controlled Substances Act for religious use are rare. Did you just hear that? They're not entirely unheard of. A legal settlement last year between several government agencies and an Arizona-based nonprofit, for example, permitted the group to import and use ayahuasca as a religious sacrament. Thank you, federal government. Jesus Christ. The organization, the Church of the Eagle and Condor, said at the time it was the first non-Christian church to receive protection for its spiritual practices regarding ayahuasca, adding that the development under the RFRA marks the first time in history a church's right to import and share its sacrament has been secured without going to trial. I can't eat. You know what? Should have taken my microdose before this. That's infuriating. I mean, the Church of the Eagle and Condor kind of patting themselves on the back a little bit for being the first church to bow to the government. Yay. Congrats. Months after the settlement, however, months after the federal government said that the agreement was irrelevant in the case of a separate psychedelic church in Iowa that wants to use ayahuasca in its ceremonies. Again, DEA completely clueless on constitutional law. How about equal protection under the law? So we're going to let this Arizona Church and Eagle Iron Condor use ayahuasca, but not you in Iowa. That doesn't extend to you. What? I mean, that church, the ayahuasca, so it's the word Iowa, IOWASKA. I get it. Ayahuasca. I like it. The church, the Ayahuasca Church of Healing, first sent its petition to the... Oh, my God. All right. Let's do some deep breathing exercises. I forgot I read this yesterday. I'm like, wait, am I reading this for the first time? I don't think I got this far in this article. Here we go. That church, the Ayahuasca Church of Healing, first sent its petition to DEA asking for an exemption around ayahuasca use in 2019. A separate request for a tax exemption with the IRS initially received no response from the agency, according to court filings. Oh, here's what's funny. The church found an unusual ally in anti-drug U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley. The guy's been there since George Washington. Republican, law and order, anti-drug, who court filings said was instrumental in expediting the regulatory appeals back in 2021. Unbelievable. A Grassley spokesman later said, however, that the senator's help shouldn't necessarily be viewed as an endorsement of the church's point of view on psychedelics. Of course not. God forbid. So, church in Arizona, you're cleared hot to use ayahuasca. You, Ayahuasca Healing Church of Iowa, put your application in this inbox on our desk, and we'll get to it. Folks, 2019, it's 2025. I'm wearing the so-called application for my church. It's called the Constitution. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the First Amendment. Nowhere in there does it say you need to apply, Whiz, Susie, to be an entheogenic church. We will use these sacraments reverently, safely, in ceremony to commune with God. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Well, clearly you can, and it's the judge somewhere in there. There was another great quote. I had a bunch of them highlighted, but she said, they're going to win. So if Utah wants to be the state that loses, this will go to the Supreme Court of the United States. Somebody's going to take this. Ron DeSantis, DEA, state, you want to come raid our healing retreat? What a great visual. Let's go raid a retreat run by a 15-year Top Gun Navy fighter pilot who's trying to reconnect people with God, to break their addictions, to reconnect them with their family, to prevent them from killing themselves. Let's go arrest him. You want to do that? Man, I'm sitting right here. We will go to the Supreme Court. And it's absolutely insane that I have to say that. And that would be, I'll manifest it right now, a 9-0 unanimous decision. The Democrats should already be there, baby, right? Hippies, anti-war, pro-psychedelics. I thought they were there. That was a lie. All those people are now aging, 9 triple vaxxed and boosted and pro-war in Ukraine people, man. What happened to you? But you would think the Republicans on the court, and I hate assigning political parties to judges, but in today's hyper-partisan environment, you have to. I didn't look at the Honorable Jill Parish's. Isn't that great? She could have been a Biden, Obama, Clinton appointee, and I love her equally. She could have been a Trump appointee or a Bush or whoever appointee, and I love her equally. That's how it should be. I shouldn't know the political leanings of Judge Parish. It doesn't matter. She is right on the law. Utah, you are not. Provo and the other Utah County, you are not. Where'd you go to law school, man? Grenada? Or is that medical school? My God, this ain't hard, baby. Go read it. I'll mail you my shirt. Or I'll mail you a copy of the Constitution, man. Shall and shall not. First Amendment? It's so funny. I wonder, could you imagine going in a time machine back to when they were writing this stuff down? We need to make it really clear. Put shall not be infringed. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that, right? I mean, future people won't be that dumb. Okay, we'll put that in the second one. How about the first one? Congress shall make no law. My God, it starts with that. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. One more time, slippery slope guy on Instagram, go read the judge's order. They're not hurting anybody else or themselves. Ain't no human sacrifice. Ain't no virgins being thrown in a volcano. No burning witches. No, I mean, hell, slippery slope Instagram guy. I'm old enough to remember, I don't know if these churches still exist, or I've seen the videos of dancing around in Georgia or the Carolinas handling snakes. Let's throw snakes at little kids and have them dance around, and God will protect them. Was that illegal? Did jackbooted thugs raid their church? Don't give me any of your slippery slope bullshit. I can't stand those type of arguments, man. That's why we're at war in Ukraine. Well, Whiz, if we don't stop him in Ukraine, he's going to steamroll into the Balkans, and Putin will be marching in Piccadilly Circus. What the fuck are you talking about? Putin and Russia are ground down to a meat grinder, 20-ish% of Ukraine. He ain't storm rolling anywhere. But Whiz, we have to say that threat, the domino theory, the slippery slope. Stop killing each other. Stop it. I'm not joking, folks. I feel this to my core. I said this the morning I woke up from sitting with the sacrament over 4.5 years ago. Do world leaders do this? Did the Pope have this type of experience? Man, if I could get Putin and Zelensky together on a retreat, there'd be no war. People that have sat with these sacraments know that's true. People who don't probably just drove off the road or changed the station. I love you. Before you go, I love you. But it's the truth. I told you in my last solo Whiz that Rick Doblin from MAPS tried to bring former Hamas terrorists, murderers, killers, and IDF veterans who sat in ceremony together. The logistics behind this were insane. Guess what happened after ceremony? They were one. There was no hate anymore. There was no desire to kill each other anymore. This was on Joe Rogan. Go watch Rick Doblin. I think it's his most recent Rick Doblin on Joe Rogan interview. He's like, we couldn't. This was before psychedelic science. It was beginning of the summer, but the Trump administration wouldn't let. I get it, but I don't. Wouldn't let the former Hamas terrorists in. I get it. But again, I don't. They don't get it. The government did not get it. Isn't it incredible? Like these nerds, the attorney general and the city attorney or county attorney, whatever like that. Hey, my brother, my sister, why don't you go? You don't have to take the sacrament. Why don't you just go hang out in ceremony? Watch. Just because it's foreign to you or you look down your nose at it does not make it illegal. Again, I love my Captain Pete Mitchell and Maverick, the guy, Scientology. It's a recognized religion in this state. God bless him. Or Xenu bless him. Whatever blessed him. 100% legal. But I'm going to, you know what? I'm glad. What time is it? I'm glad I actually came up with this. Got to trade the clothes here. Got a S&P 500 Iron Condor I got to look at. Because it helps fund all this stuff, man. I'm going to do some more digging, and I want to see if the Mormon thing had anything to do with this. Like, are they seeing this as a threat? Is this... What's the background? Because I would have thought, man, when I initially saw this headline, like, Utah, entheogenic church wins. I'm like, Utah? You would think they'd be one of the most religious freedom states there is based on the Mormonism and stuff like that. But maybe it was a threat. Things that people don't understand, they assume is a threat. Look at me, man. Am I a threat? Just want to helping people to reconnect with God, source, divine, the universe, creation, Mother Earth. Helping facilitate that helps me heal. Okay? I ain't no Eli Gemstone, man. I ain't no... we're not in the middle. You don't need a priest, a preacher, a rabbi. You don't need anybody between you and God. There is no thing. There is nothing between you and God. There is no separation. The belief that you are separate from God and each other, that's the sin. But it's a sin to be corrected, not to be punished. That's what the Holy Spirit does. That's in my beliefs. Because, and that was somebody, reached out and was like, well, what type of religion is this? I'm like, it's all of them. It's any of them. It's whatever you want. I still get, I'm a recovering Catholic. I still believe in all of it. Don't necessarily believe in the, quote, chain of command, as we talked about previously. When Jesus talked in parables, folks, the only time he was uber direct was one-on-one with the boys behind closed doors. But out in public, I and the Father are one. I don't think that was a spiritual chain of command. Like, it's just me and him and you guys. I and the Father are one. He was like, it's Christ consciousness. It's called Christ consciousness. It's called oneness. I experienced that. There was no priest, Monsignor, Archbishop, Cardinal, Pope, Saint, Angel in between me and God. I told you I lost my faith. I don't need it anymore. I had direct experience. And that's what's interesting with this court case. Like, a sincere religious belief, there ain't no more believing than seeing and experiencing. I had direct experience, period. Now, ladies and gentlemen, after learning that, after 4 decades of thinking I was separate and God, and I lost my faith, and I see God every day. I see God in the good. I see God in the bad. I see God in everything. I'm grateful for my suffering. I'm grateful for the bad. Grateful for the good. I am grateful for it all because I can see God in everything and in everyone. I told you before, man, I'm that nerd that will sit there watching YouTube videos late at night on quantum mechanics, the edge of the universe, infinite universe. When you start digging into quantum things, folks, that matter actually collapses and comes into reality when it's observed, that'll twist your mind. Matter exists in superposition. It exists in all sorts of infinite type of positions until it's observed. Don't believe me? It freaked Einstein the hell out. I am deep. The more science and digging that I do into that type of stuff, the closer. I don't need to get any closer to God. I'm one with God. You're one with God. But you know what I'm getting at is the more academic stuff I do, instead of God being on a throne in the white robe and the beard, that I learned. I'm taking a more scientific and mathematical approach. Oh, what's the guy's name? Google this. The Return of the God Hypothesis. Stephen Meyer, Dr. Stephen Meyer. Google that book. It's a tough one, man. It's a phone book. The guy's a 500-pound head. Watch, you know what? There you go. Watch the YouTube videos with Dr. Stephen Meyer. He digs into it, man. DNA, it's computer code written by there's no way DNA just came out. I'm not going to steal it. It's a programmer, an intelligent designer, right? Those are the 2 books I strongly recommend you read. 3, How to Change Your Mind, obviously, Michael Pollan. Or if you want the Cliff Notes, you binge watch it tonight on Netflix. 4 episodes, an hour each. You can do it in one night. How to Change Your Mind, Michael Pollan, Netflix. The book is much better. Mine is dog-eared and highlighted and got sand in it. I'll pick it up every once in a while. 4 books. Course in Miracles. I'm sorry. How to Change Your Mind. I was going to get to A Course in Miracles. ACIM. A Course in Miracles. After I meditate each morning for 20 minutes, I do an ACM. Go on YouTube, ACIM. And the Julian date. What's the Julian date? January 1st is 1. December 31st is 365. So just put ACIM and whatever. You can Google it. What's today's Julian date? 2/22. ACIM 222. They're only about 3 to 5 minute, maybe a max of 7 minute. And you'll go through that lesson for the day. Trust me on this. Wake up full of gratitude. Take your microdose. Go meditate 20 minutes, and then sit at your computer, put your headphones in, whatever it is. Just open up your phone and ACIM and the Julian date. And then the last 2 books, Brian Marescu, right? The Immortality Key. I have a hint. So it's funny that all these people are like, well, this is a new religion. This ain't no new religion, folks. Wait until you find out what happened at Eleusis and the Greeks and the Eleusinian mysteries. Dionysus. Entheogenic therapy, entheogenic sacraments preceded Christianity. John Martin Alego. Mushroom and the sacred cross, right? Or the cross and the sacred mushroom? Something like that. Anyway, well, that was a tangent. All right, guys and gals, I feel a little bit better. I've come down. This was infuriating. I can't believe that it had to come to this. I can't believe when a federal judge has to smack it down that hard. I mean, again, the egos of the attorney generals, the attorneys, and they can't admit to failing, to losing, or being wrong. I would have, after this type of smackdown, if I was the attorney general, I'd be like, man, I apologize. They can't do that, Whiz. I hope this church sues for malicious prosecution. I hope they sue the state of Utah and these counties and the city for violation of their civil rights. I hope they get all their attorney's fees paid for, and I hope the men and women of Utah have to write a big effing check. Get rid of qualified immunity for these agents of the state when they break the law. These people can't read the First Amendment. How did you become an attorney? Unbelievable. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's end on a high note. I'm happy. I'm in the studio right now. It's a Friday afternoon. My beautiful bride, Susie, is driving up to our retreat center for a ceremony this weekend with some ladies, some incredible ladies, a couple veterans, I believe. Maybe is there a first responder? I know there's some family members of veterans and first responders, and there's a couple civilians. So Susie, Teresa, I'll be holding space this weekend as they execute our sacred ceremony using our sacrament, helping these women who have endured pain and trauma and some stuff. I pray, God, that you show them that they were never disconnected from you. They've always been one with you. And that they are forgiven. God, I pray that you remind these beautiful women that they are perfect, for you do not make imperfect things. I pray in your name, amen. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your day. Fights on, namaste, and basi basi. Whiz out.